Need space. In Cabo with my boss. Don't wait up. That was the whole message. No greeting. No punctuation. Not even a question mark pretending to be polite. I was stirring my coffee when it came through. Just regular drip, black, nothing fancy. Serena always made a production out of it. Milk steamed, oat, not dairy, vanilla syrup, frothy cinnamon swirls like she was auditioning for some influencer gig at Starbucks. I always thought it was silly. Now, I understood it was practice. For a life I wasn't meant to be in. I didn't reply, didn't grip the phone, didn't mutter what the hell, like some confused sitcom husband. I just sipped my coffee and nodded. She'd finally sent the one message I'd prepped for, but hoped wouldn't come. Then I got up. Not in a hurry, not like a man chasing anything. I walked to the bedroom, pulled open the top drawer of my nightstand, where behind an old pack of cough drops and a flashlight with dead batteries, there was a red folder. Slim, soft leather, zipped on 3 sides. I'd labeled it in marker, years ago, on a night when she was working late. The handwriting was mine, but the name on it might as well have been hers. If she leaves. I unzipped it and opened the first page, a checklist. Black ink. Bullet points. Precise. Like the buildings I used to draw before clients started asking for open concept everything and ruining good bones. Call David, trust lawyer. Contact Elaine, realtor. Check mutual funds. Remember the Vanguard one she never tracks. Book flight. Email Maya. Leave nothing behind except what she chose to ignore. I checked the first one. Then the second. There was no music, no movie score. Just the soft creak of the floorboards. Same ones I installed myself in 1994, the year we moved in, before her yoga studio days and executive retreats. Back when she still wore her hair in a ponytail and snorted when she laughed. She didn't even bother to call. That was the part that almost got me. Not the affair. I'd suspected something for months, but the casual delivery. Like she was informing me the recycling would be delayed. You don't text that kind of thing unless you've convinced yourself the person receiving it is already emotionally gone. I guess she thought I'd be devastated. Or clinging. Or pathetic. She didn't realize I'd left her, emotionally, 2 years ago. I just hadn't moved my body yet. And if you're still listening, I'll ask you for one small thing. Hit that subscribe. 98% of you won't. I get it. But it keeps this going, and you'll want to see where this ends. Because this wasn't rage. This was the last draft of a blueprint I'd drawn quietly in the background of our marriage. On the back of canceled vacation brochures, behind fake smiles at company dinners, during the 4th networking event she took without her wedding ring. She used to joke that I was too calm to ever cheat. She was right. I was calm, just not stupid. The red folder went into my briefcase. I changed into jeans and a windbreaker. Looked at the mirror. For once, I didn't hate what I saw. 63, silver hair, a little arthritis, sure, but still all there. Still the guy who built 3 custom homes before turning 30. Still the man who didn't need to yell to win. In the kitchen, her framed photo still sat on the counter. Us at Lake Arrowhead. She had sunglasses on and her hand on my chest, like she owned it. I turned the frame around. Just that. Didn't smash it. Didn't throw it. Let her deal with silence. It rattles the guilty more than any scream ever could. By 10 a.m., I had David on the phone. By noon, Elaine had the listing paperwork ready. The house. Already in my name. In a trust one created when we refinanced during COVID. Because Serena thought paperwork was boring and male. I always handled the boring things. She handled tequila shots and sunset selfies with her mentor. At 2:13 p.m., I received another message. A boomerang video of her laughing in a pool, drink in hand, legs around her boss's waist. Captioned, stress detox palm tree kiss mark. I watched it twice. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything. I smiled and checked off item number 4. Elaine blinked twice when I told her. You're sure, Frank? You're really selling this house? Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she stepped into the living room. Sunlight cutting across the sofa Serena insisted on importing from Italy. The same sofa she once told me was timeless and marital. I stared at it now like a museum artifact from a life that never quite matched the brochure. Not just selling, I said. I want it gone fast. No open houses. No drama. If they've got a good offer, take it. Trust owns the deed. I just need signatures on paper. She looked at me again, closer this time. Elaine knew Serena. They'd done Pilates together before Serena decided that stretching with the suburban undead wasn't her thing. They used to chat at neighborhood mixers. She had to be wondering why the guy with the quiet wife and the mortgage paid off was suddenly ready to torch the dream. But she didn't ask. She was smart. Cash buyers only, she said. No financing. I'll call 2 people tonight. By 7 p.m., she'd already sent me photos from a walkthrough with a young tech couple looking for coastal legacy vibes. They wore matching Patagonia and spoke in words like potential equity. I told her to go with them if they hit the number. Meanwhile, I logged into the joint brokerage account, one of the dull ones Serena never bothered with. Not the flashy one tied to her Apple stock and feminist ETFs. This was the dinosaur account. Mutual funds. Safe, slow. She'd forgotten it existed. But I hadn't. I transferred $243,000 into a separate account I opened 2 years ago under the trust name. It triggered no alerts. No calls. Because she never bothered setting those up. Security, like loyalty, was something she assumed just existed. Back on Instagram, Serena posted a boomerang of a lime wedge being dropped into a tequila shot. Caption: Monday meetings, but make it sexy hot pepper briefcase. Another shot of her and her boss, Gavin, shirtless in a cabana. His hand was too close to her thigh. Hashtag work-life balance. She never blocked me. Never even changed her privacy settings. Arrogance? Or carelessness? Didn't matter. She handed me a blueprint, and I had the tools. The funniest part? The background of the photo. Not them, but the bracelet. A little green and gold thing I bought her in Prague, years ago. She said it reminded her of spring. She wore it now, as if nothing about that gift had meaning. I remembered what she said back then, half drunk on mulled wine in the old town square. If I ever betray you, take everything but this. So I made a note to leave it in the envelope. Let her keep the symbol of her own damn irony. By Friday morning, Elaine called. Frank, they offered full cash. No inspection. They want to close within the week. Accepted, I said. Draft the papers. Where should I send them? Not here. My lawyer's office. He'll sign. There was a pause. Then her voice softened. She doesn't know yet, does she? She's in Cabo, I said. With her boss. Another pause. And that was it. Elaine was too classy to say more. I sat back on the porch with a bourbon in hand. Same chair Serena once claimed, looked to Grandpa. The salt breeze blew through the pines, and for the first time in years, I listened to it. Really listened. She was out there filming her second adolescence. I was here, dismantling the theater she thought would be waiting for her curtain call. Step by step, board by board, room by room. And I wasn't even angry. Just busy. The only time I hesitated, really hesitated, was when I handed Buster's leash to my sister. He looked at me like he always did, that slow blink of trust dogs save for the people who never forget dinner time or miss a walk. I scratched behind his ear, crouched down, and whispered, "You're lucky, you know. You still wag for love." He licked my knuckles. No questions asked. No betrayal text at 8:13 a.m. from a Mexican resort. My sister hugged me tighter than she had in years. "Are you okay?" "I'm not dying," I told her. "I'm just removing myself from a circus I didn't audition for." Then I drove to the bank and did something Serena always said was paranoid and outdated. I walked inside. In person. Sat down with a real human and closed every account with my name on it. Except one. That one, I left alone. It was hers technically, but I'd been listed once, briefly, during our refinance. Enough to give me digital access. I left exactly $217 in there. Just enough to see her swipe for an overpriced bottle of wine and get declined halfway through. Credit cards? Canceled. Except hers. And hers? I called the issuer and lowered the limit. Just below what her average Cabo dinner costs. She'd find out soon enough. Preferably while sitting across from Mr. Gavin the Grope in some open-air seafood lounge. I pictured her arguing with the waiter. Him looking away awkwardly. Her blaming the bank's app. I didn't laugh, but I did smile. Then I made the call that turned a quiet retreat into an escape plan. "Eduardo," I said, when my old colleague picked up. "Is that room you once mentioned in Lisbon still available?" "Frank. My friend. Always." "Why? You coming?" "Yeah. For a while. Maybe longer. Something happened? I paused. The past 20 years happened. I'm just finally responding. He didn't press. Just said, we'll pick you up. Bring an appetite. My wife's making bacalhau. Flight was booked within the hour. One way. Business class. Because if you're leaving your entire life behind, you may as well get a hot towel and a glass of scotch on the way out. That night, I drafted an email, not to Serena. She didn't deserve closure served warm. I wrote to Maya. Subject, just taking a breather. Hey kid, I'm heading out for a while. Nothing bad, just overdue. You'll understand soon. Don't worry about the house. You never really liked that coastal fog anyway. Love you more than bourbon on a cold porch. Dad. I hit send. Then I deleted every photo of Serena from my phone. Except one. It was from 2003. She's standing in the garden holding a basket of tomatoes she insisted on growing. She looks real. Not curated. Not filtered. Just a woman with dirt under her nails and joy in her eyes. I kept it. Not for her. For the version of me who loved that version of her. A ghost file. Archive only. At 6:30 a.m., I packed my bag. One carry-on. Passport, folder, laptop, backup drive, and a paperback Maya gave me last Christmas, The Art of Letting Go. The irony was thick enough to chew. I locked the front door. Left the keys with Elaine. Didn't look back. Because when a man leaves a burning theater, he doesn't wave at the flames. The video was 23 seconds long. Serena's laugh, sharp, performative, almost metallic, echoed off the tiled pool deck. She was in some infinity pool on a cliff in Cabo, bikini strap sliding down one shoulder like an accident rehearsed. Gavin, the Boston bedmate, stood behind her pouring champagne into her mouth straight from the bottle. She pretended to choke, then kissed his cheek, yelling over the wind. New views, new truths. Hashtag Cabo clarity. Hashtag work hard, play harder. Hashtag just us two. She didn't realize the sound in the background caught everything. Gavin's voice saying, your husband's probably dead asleep in his old man robe. I wasn't asleep. I was on a red eye over the Atlantic, watching that video on repeat somewhere over Iceland. Noise-canceling headphones, bourbon in one hand, my attorney's auto-reply confirming receipt of the material in my inbox. I didn't send it to David. I simply forwarded the post. He replied 4 minutes later. Downloaded. Noted. I assume we're proceeding? I wrote back. Let the knife sharpen itself. When I landed in Lisbon, I felt no need to check if she'd posted more. She had, dozens, actually. Yoga on the beach, toasts at sunset, hotel towels folded into swans. Gavin shirtless again, always within arm's reach. Always grinning like a man too proud to know he's just been handed his own leash. But that wasn't why I smiled as I sipped espresso on the edge of the Tagus River. No, I smiled because the longer she filmed her fantasy, the deeper she walked into a record I didn't need to manipulate. Just save. I had no interest in confrontation. No screaming matches. No hotel room accusations. Those are for men still hoping the story can be rewritten. I was in editing mode now. Across from me, Eduardo passed me a pasty and nada and asked, you ready to see the apartment? I nodded. As long as it doesn't overlook drama. He laughed. It overlooks a convent. Nothing dramatic about nuns. Perfect. Back in the States, Elaine had already forwarded me signed documents. The young tech couple submitted proof of funds and requested a fast close. 1 week. Cash wired. The title transfer? Already in motion. I responded with a single line. Accept and expedite. Serena, meanwhile, uploaded a carousel post. Her in a white dress, barefoot on the beach, holding a margarita like a trophy. Captioned, sometimes you have to let go of the old to find the truth that makes you feel alive. She always did love faux philosophy layered over betrayal. Like dressing a corpse in designer clothes and calling it transformation. I forwarded that one to Maya. Not with a note. Just the link. She responded within the hour. Is she seriously doing this publicly? I replied. You'd be amazed what people show you when they think you're too weak to watch. No anger. No revenge plans scrawled in blood. Just timestamps. Evidence. Precision. You see, most people think betrayal is loud. But the most dangerous response is silence coupled with action, and I was already halfway through my checklist. The movers arrived at 7:15 a.m. sharp. Private crew. No logos. Cash paid. No questions. Just these, the foreman asked, nodding at the living room full of curated chaos, Serena's world in color-coded piles. Her velvet chaise. The rack of cashmere sweaters. A ridiculous collection of shoes lined up like they were waiting for an audition. And the framed photos she insisted we hang over the fireplace every Christmas, carefully staged shots where she tilted her head to hide the side she said was too corporate. I handed the guy a sticky note. Everything marked in red tags. Leave the master closet items. Those are mine. Everything else? Front lawn. He gave a low whistle. She know. She's finding out in stages. By 9 a.m., the driveway looked like an upscale garage sale hosted by a ghost. Luggage. Shoeboxes. Spa kits. One small safe she used for private items, which I never opened, but always found amusingly insecure. Everything placed neatly, not dumped, because disorder screams hurt. Precision whispers decision. I stood at the window sipping tea as they wheeled out her last trunk, monogrammed, of course. She had a thing for initials on everything. Towels. Bags. Even one of the cheese boards. The neighbor across the street, Glenn, leaned over his fence. Frank? Is Serena redecorating or— No, Glenn, I said. She's relocating. He stared, then nodded slowly. Well, damn. At 10:17 a.m., I got the first ping. WhatsApp, not text. Serena preferred the encryption when she wanted to hide things and pretend she was just protecting client confidentiality. Serena, Frank. Glenn just sent me a picture of the yard. What the hell is going on? Me. You left some things. I returned them. She didn't respond. I pictured her squinting at her phone, poolside, Gavin snoring beside her, the morning heat rising off Cabo. She'd assume I was bluffing. A scare tactic. A guilt play. But she underestimated the clarity that comes after a clean cut. At 10:34 a.m., Glenn texted her a second photo, this one of her standing lamp, and a painting of Tuscany she bought at a charity auction and never shut up about. Now leaning against a shrub. This time, she replied faster. Serena, you can't just put my stuff on the lawn like I'm some kicked-out college student. Me, didn't. I arranged for it. And that was the truth. Nothing in those piles was tossed. No shattered frames, no slashed clothing, no theatrics. Just neat, clear boundaries. One side of the street now contained everything that belonged to a woman who thought she could burn the house down and still get the keys. I left a single note inside one of the bags, tucked into her Pilates tote. It read, You said you needed space. I've given you square footage. By noon, she started calling. I didn't answer. Because I was having lunch in Alfama, laughing with Eduardo about the time we built a rooftop garden for a couple who ended up hating each other before the soil even settled. She was still trying to decide if this was war. She hadn't realized yet. This wasn't revenge. It was removal. The first decline happened at checkout. Serena had just slipped on oversized sunglasses, designer, white-rimmed, obnoxiously large, and strutted to the desk like a woman who hadn't uploaded half her vacation and thirst trap fragments. Room 704, she said, adjusting her bikini strap like it was a necklace of pearls. Checking out. My car's waiting. The receptionist, a young man with polite exhaustion in his voice, smiled. Of course, Miss Powell. One moment. Tap, tap, swipe. A pause. He smiled again, tighter now. Sorry, that card didn't go through. Do you have another? Serena scoffed and reached into her woven clutch, the one she bought in Tulum during her creative realignment phase. Out came card number 2. Gold. She handed it over like a challenge. Tap. Swipe. Declined. She leaned in. Try it again. He did. Still nothing. Now the smile on his face was that of a man who knew the protocol but hated the scene. Do you have another method of payment? Her throat clicked. Check under my husband's name. He handles the travel points. I'm afraid this room is under your card, ma'am. She stepped back, pulled out her phone, opened her banking app, and saw nothing. Literally, $0 in her checking. Savings? Closed. The shared brokerage? Vanished. Panic, when it hits someone entitled, is always loud. Not sobbing loud, offended loud. Serena wasn't scared of being broke. She was horrified at the implication that someone had the audacity to outmaneuver her. She stormed to the lobby couch, furiously tapping a number she hadn't used in a week. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. She switched tactics. Called the bank. The woman on the other end was maddeningly calm. Yes, Miss Powell, those accounts were closed per legal authority by the primary account holder. I was on those accounts. You were a secondary party, not the primary. The accounts were held in a marital trust under Mr. Powell's legal control. As of last Thursday, they were liquidated per Clause 3B of the agreement. Serena's voice dropped half an octave, a tone she once used on restaurant managers when her wine was too earthy. You don't understand. This is a mistake. My husband is. But even she couldn't finish that sentence. Because for the first time, she realized she didn't know where I was. Not really. She was in a luxury resort with no working cards, no accessible cash, and a man, Gavin, who'd already retreated to the bar the moment her voice got tight. She called him now. Can you just spot the bill? I'll wire it tonight. Gavin hesitated. How much is it? She looked at the screen. $2,864.18. Minibar included. $3,000. Silence. Sure, he said finally, clipped. Just send me your routing info later. That was the moment. That tiny pause. That microscopic crack in his voice when he realized this was no longer a vacation fling, it was paperwork. Serena stood in the lobby, holding a maxed-out clutch, sweating in a $400 cover-up, and felt the air shift. Not just heat, reality. She tried me one more time. Voicemail. No words. Just that pre-recorded message I made before I left. You've reached Frank Powell. If this is urgent, leave a message. If it's about Cabo, it's not. Beep. But she didn't leave anything. Because some messages don't need replies. Some lessons teach themselves. The plane touched down at 11:42 p.m. rang. Fitting. Serena didn't check a bag. She never did. But her carry-on now had a busted wheel and reeked of spilled perfume. The scent was cloying and overconfident, like her Instagram captions. She posted one more on the plane. A throwback photo of the ocean and Gavin's arm barely in frame. Recharged. Realigned. Ready for whatever. Well, whatever had already RSVP'd. Her Uber driver didn't say a word during the ride. Middle-aged, Hispanic, AirPods in, silently nodding to some invisible beat. Serena stared out the window, texting Gavin 3 times. He didn't answer. The house came into view as the car turned the corner. Only, it wasn't her house anymore. Not in the way she expected. Because right there on the lawn, lit by the glow of the porch light and half a dozen ring cams from neighboring homes, was her life. Boxed, stacked, and soaked. One trunk had toppled over. Her leather duffel sat face down in a puddle. The framed print she once bought in Prague, the same one she swore reminded her of who she really was, leaned like a tombstone against the mailbox. Rain streaked the glass like tears. No, no, no. She practically threw cash at the Uber driver and sprinted up the walkway in her wedge heels, slipping once, recovering just in time to grab the iron handle on the front door. She punched in the code. Red light. Beep. Again. Red. Beep. She pounded harder. Frank. Frank. No answer. She reached for her phone, called again. Straight to voicemail. That same calm voice. You've reached Frank Powell. If this is urgent, leave a message. If it's about Cabo, it's not. She banged both fists on the door now, furious, hair soaked, eyeliner running, fury rising from her like steam. The porch light flicked off, and across the street, a porch light flicked on. It was Glenn, the neighbor who always wore cargo shorts no matter the season. This time, he had a hoodie on, hood up, holding his phone up, filming. Evening, Serena, he said, voice too chipper for midnight. Smile for TikTok. The internet loves karma. You're filming me? She screamed. Glenn shrugged. You made it public first. Remember? Hashtag work-life balance. Hashtag Cabo clarity. Real poetic stuff. Her jaw dropped. You don't get it. This is my house. Nope, he said, zooming in. And you should have checked the listings. It sold last week. Closed in cash. Fastest flip I've seen since that divorcee on Birch Street lit her man's Jeep on fire. Serena whirled back to the door, slammed her palm on the keypad. kicked the frame. The wood held. It didn't feel like a door anymore. It felt like a wall. One she helped build, nail by nail, with every lie she thought she got away with. Inside, silence. Outside, rain soaking her blouse, her bags, her pride. Another neighbor peeked from behind curtains. A dog barked 2 houses down. Glenn, still filming, said, "You know, I almost feel bad. But then I remembered. He gave you everything. And you chose Gavin the human loofah." She turned on him. "You don't know what our marriage was like." He lowered the phone an inch. "No, but I do know who built your porch, painted your fence, changed your tires, all while you bragged about energy alignment and called him stiff." Silence. Real silence. Because nothing cuts deeper than being exposed in front of the very people who watched you pretend to be better. She sank to her knees on the porch. Not out of sorrow. Out of calculation. She had no plan anymore. And for someone who always controlled the narrative, that was hell. The rain didn't stop. Neither did Glenn's camera. The porch light flicked back on. Serena flinched like it had slapped her. She was kneeling now, soaked to the bone, fists clenched on the welcome mat that still read, "Home is where the heart is," a mat she'd bought on sale during a post-therapy Target spree. The irony was practically printed in bold. Then, the door clicked. Not swung open, not flung with fury, just clicked. Smooth. Quiet. A woman appeared. Mid-30s. Cropped jacket, yoga leggings, barefoot. Hair wrapped in a towel like she'd just stepped out of a calm shower and into Serena's personal hurricane. She tilted her head and said, plainly, "Can I help you?" Serena blinked up at her. "What are you doing in my house?" The woman raised an eyebrow. "Your house." Serena stood, slowly, like a deer deciding whether the truck has already hit it. "Yes, I live here. I own this." "Actually," the woman said, stepping fully into the doorway, "I just signed a 12-month lease last Friday. Through the trust's property management firm. They gave me a digital keypad code that works. Yours, clearly, does not." Serena's throat dried mid-breath. The woman reached behind the door and brought out an envelope. Plain white. Her name on it, in Frank's handwriting. Serena didn't even need to open it to feel the walls close in. Still, she did. Inside was a copy of the closing contract, sale amount, date, notarized signatures. The title was held by FP Coastal Holdings LLC, a trust Serena never once asked about because, in her words, trusts are for people who don't trust their spouses. Tucked behind the documents was a single note. Black ink. No flourish. "You asked for space. I gave you the whole house's worth of it. F." That's when it stopped being a tantrum and started becoming horror. The woman, still calm, said, "You really didn't know? I assumed you left town after the sale." Realtors said the ex-wife was out of the picture. "I guess not quite yet." Serena's mouth moved, but no sound came out. The woman gestured with the envelope. "You probably want to take this with you. There's a number for the storage company if you left anything actually valuable inside." Then, with that same eerie composure, she added, "Oh, and just FYI, I've got cameras too. So if you're planning to pitch a fit, I'd do it across the street." And with that, she closed the door. Click. Not a slam. Not dramatic. Just firm. Final. Serena stood frozen, the envelope limp in her hand, her makeup running in soft rivulets. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't reparable. There wasn't a key to fix this. She looked at the house again, not the bags on the lawn, not the porch she used to sweep while humming fake happiness, but the windows. They no longer looked back at her. They reflected someone else now, someone who'd asked for space, and got evicted from her entire narrative. It took Serena 7 tries before Maya picked up. She'd called through iMessage, WhatsApp, even FaceTime. Though her connection was garbage and her reflection in the screen looked like something dragged out of a gutter. Mascara smudged, hair clinging wet to her cheeks, that wild-eyed panic of someone who finally realized the show ended 3 acts ago, and she wasn't cast in the finale. "Hello." Maya's voice came through, cautious. "Cool." Serena gripped the phone like it might run away. "Sweetheart," she started, too fast, too eager. "Where's your father?" There was a pause. A long one. Maya breathed in slowly. "He's in Portugal." Silence. Then Serena said, more to herself than her daughter, "Portugal." "Yes, Mom." Lisbon. He's staying with someone named Eduardo. They were colleagues back before you started hating his job. You knew? Another pause. Deeper now. I knew when I saw your boss's hand up your dress on Instagram. Serena flinched. Maya continued. I knew when you posted new truths with a man who once referred to Dad as the quaint guy with map-colored shirts. I knew when your tequila reels looked like Tinder ads for burnout executives. You don't understand, Maya, Serena snapped. Things with your father were complicated. No, Mom. They were simple. You wanted out. You just didn't think Dad would hold the door open for you. Serena staggered back, bumping into one of her soaked luggage bags. A suitcase handle jabbed into the back of her thigh, grounding her in just how real this was. Maya, please, listen to me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. He's still your father. We, this family. But Maya cut her off. No, you broke the family. You were too busy chasing clarity to notice the ground falling out from under you. A sharp click. Then nothing. The call had ended. Serena stood there, the phone still pressed to her ear, listening to the hollow silence as if it might somehow loop back and give her a different ending. It didn't. She looked at the device like it betrayed her, then slowly lowered it to her side. The street around her was quiet now. The neighbors had gone inside. Glenn's porch light was off. Even the woman in the house, her former house, had probably curled up with tea and a book and zero regrets. Everyone had somewhere to go. Everyone but her. The cold soaked through her shoes. Her knees shook. The rain had become a drizzle, but the air felt heavier now. No Frank. No house. No money. No daughter. And not even Gavin, who hadn't returned a single call since the minibar bill. All Serena had left now were soaked designer bags, a dead marriage, and a lifetime of receipts she thought would never come due. They had, and not one came with a refund. 3 days later, the letter arrived. Certified. Hand-delivered by a courier wearing a rain jacket and that neutral, slightly apologetic expression people wear when they know they're delivering something heavy, if not in weight, then in meaning. Are you Serena Powell? He asked. She nodded, wordless. He handed her the envelope, had her sign, and left before she could ask anything. Probably protocol. Or maybe even the courier had heard of her by now. It wouldn't be hard. Half the neighborhood had seen the porch meltdown, and Glenn's little TikTok clip titled, Cabo Wife Gets Evicted by Karma, had already cracked 20,000 views. She stepped inside the rundown Airbnb she'd managed to book with what was left on a backup card Gavin once helped her set up for business emergencies. She didn't think this counted, but she was no longer picky. She sat at the kitchen table, Formica peeling, the chair uneven, and stared at the envelope. Return address, FP Coastal Holdings LLC. She knew what it meant before she even slid it open. Still, she hoped. She always had hope. That was her weakness. Or her arrogance. Same difference. The papers were printed cleanly, clipped together, and stacked with bureaucratic finality. The top line. Notice of property transfer and estate revision. The language was cold. Legal. Surgical. She was never listed as co-owner of the primary residence. She'd signed away her stake during the refinancing years ago. Too bored to read the clauses, too confident Frank would handle the boring stuff. He had. And then some. Next, her financial access was revoked 2 weeks prior to her trip. All joint accounts dissolved. Her name removed from every distribution vehicle. The brokerage, the pension, the trusts, they were airlocked tight. She flipped to the final page. A single paragraph, in handwriting she couldn't pretend not to recognize. Serena, you once told me you wanted freedom, not fences. So I gave you the gate code and walked away. The house was never yours. The money was always shared, until you made your love conditional. The only beneficiary of my estate is Maya. She has my name, my trust, and my forgiveness. You had my loyalty until the moment you mocked it poolside. This isn't revenge. It's math. Because some things can't be fixed. Only left. F. Serena read it twice. The words didn't sting. They numbed. The silence between the lines screamed louder than anything Frank had ever said in their last 5 years together. She looked around the Airbnb, cracked tiles, flickering bulb, the faint smell of mildew, and suddenly realized. This wasn't just temporary. This was residual. The consequence that keeps echoing long after the door slams. No house, no money, no legacy, not even hatred, just absence. As if she had died, and Frank chose to remember the ghost, not the betrayal. She folded the letter back into the envelope. Neat. Precise. For a moment, she imagined what it would feel like to scream. But it passed. Because you can't scream at a man who already turned off the lights, changed the locks, and took the future with him. And the worst part? He didn't even say goodbye. He just stopped being available for her chaos. Which, in the end, was the most merciless kind of love. The kind that walks away without needing to look back.